Summary of the line becomes a river by Francisco Cantú. Francisco Cantú gets a job with the U.S. Border Patrol right after he graduates from college, where he studied the border between the U.S. and Mexico. As the grandson of a Mexican migrant and a young adult who has lived in the American Southwest for almost all of his life, Cantú has always known something about the border. He thinks that working for Border Patrol will help him learn more about the area and its politics. During his training, when his boss tells him scary stories from the field, he starts to wonder what kind of work he's getting himself into. Many of his friends have quit because the training is hard. Cantu's close relationship with his mother is already showing signs of strain. When she asks questions about the morals and safety of working for Border Patrol, he gets defensive. After 3 months on the job, Cantu's training is over. He works with a big group of other new hires. An agent's job is to find people trying to illegally cross the desert from Mexico into the U.S. and bring them to the police station, where they are either processed and sent back to Mexico or kept to face legal charges in the U.S. Cantú often talks to the refugees he catches in Spanish and asks them about where they are from. His fellow trainees and bosses, on the other hand, are often rude, like when they urinate on the things of migrants. Cantú mixes his own stories about working on the border with facts from the past. In particular, he talks about how hard and political it was to find and mark the line in the middle of the 19th century. Cantú meets a steady stream of travelers, both dead and living, after he graduates. Cantú is kind, polite, and interested in the lives of the refugees, so these meetings often get close. But he is already having bad thoughts that make him feel anxious. For example, he thinks that he is grinding his teeth out. Cantu's dreams about his teeth keep getting worse, and soon a doctor tells him that he is actually grinding his teeth. When his friend and co-worker Morales is in a motorbike accident, Cantú is afraid to go see him and then won't let himself cry. This is another sign of his mental pain. Cantú worries one night that a suspect has followed him home and is waiting on the corner of his street. Soon after that, he goes to a gun range to practice and shoots a small bird on purpose. As someone who was raised to love and respect nature, his mother was a park ranger, after all. Cantú is quickly shocked and scared by his own behavior and what it might mean about how his job is changing him. Cantú was a field agent for 2 years and did a good job. Because of this, he was given a new job as an intelligence officer in Tucson. His first job in intelligence is to write reports about important things that happen along the border, like gang and cartel members, big drug busts, dead bodies, and shootings involving Border Patrol agents. Cantú starts getting emails every day with information about cartel activity, including horrible photos of people that have been cut up and mutilated by gang violence. His bad dreams are getting worse and often involve violence or wolves, which come to represent the violence that lurks in people's minds. The story is getting more and more broken up. Cantú mixes his story about working in intelligence with newspaper pieces, academic studies, and songs that show how Mexican migrants really live and how little their plight is covered in the U.S. He tells stories about another agent named Cantú who dies in the field and about going to his great-aunt's funeral in San Diego, where he spends time with the Mexican side of his family. Hayward gets a raise in El Paso, Texas, and asks Cantú to apply for a job under him. Cantú gets the job. Hayward, Cantú, and Beto and Manuel, 2 of Cantu's new co-workers, will soon go to New Mexico to look into a possible drug trading plan. After that, Cantú stays in New Mexico to see his father's brother. His father's brother tells Cantú about how much he loves nature and the wild, but also about how, as a builder, he has destroyed a lot of natural beauty. Cantú thinks about his own fears and inner conflicts as he thinks about this inconsistency, but he doesn't tell them. Cantú mixes his own story with stories about the crime in Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, which is just across the Rio Grande from his new home in El Paso, Texas. He uses articles about the murders of women, called femicides, that started happening in the city in the 1990s. He also uses articles about the violence and chaos that started happening around the city in 2006, when the drug war in Mexico got worse. Cantú and Beto help Manuel move into his new house. After that, Beto can't talk about how they are related to Mexico. Even though they both have family on the other side of the line, neither of them has crossed it since they started working for line patrol. Cant's dreams, on the other hand, are getting worse and happening more often. Now, he dreams about being in Ciudad Juarez sometimes. After an agent shoots and kills a migrant, Cant's boss, Hayward, tells him about his own pain and grief from when he was a young agent in his early 20s and killed a migrant. In this way, Cant shows study that proves there is a gene linked to violent tendencies, but he also says that the gene only comes out when a child has been hurt or abused. He then talks about the time he was meant to take care of Beto's dog over the weekend, but the dog got away and cut another dog's throat. Cant is very upset by all the fighting. Cant moves on from the story about the dog to talk about moral injury, a condition usually associated with troops in which a person's mind is hurt by having to accept things they know are wrong. Hayward gives Cant, Manuel, and Beto a job doing monitoring near where Cant used to work in the field. At the end of a workday, they find a migrant whose group has left her behind. Cant takes the woman to the station to be processed and to take care of her injured feet. She tells him in Spanish that he is a good person, but he doesn't agree. Cant tells Hayward, his boss, that he is chosen to take a research grant to study abroad and doesn't plan to come back to the agency afterward. The story skips ahead a few years. Cant is now working at a coffee shop and getting an MFA in writing at the same time. At work, he becomes friends with a repair worker named Jose, who turns out to be an illegal immigrant. After going back to Mexico to be with his mother while she was dying, Jose got stuck below the border. He is no longer with his wife and 3 kids, whom he loves very much. He is caught trying to sneak across the border, so he has to go to court. Cant uses his links in Border Patrol to help Jose's family see him and help his court case. Walter, Jose's court-appointed lawyer, tells Cant that most Border Patrol agents have lost their humanity and are cruel to migrants because they don't see them as real people. Walter doesn't know Cant's job history. Diane, who works at the coffee shop where Jose and Cant work, sets up for an immigration lawyer to help Jose with his case. Cant helps Jose's wife, Lupe, put together a long petition for Jose to stay in the country. The petition includes letters from Jose's wife, kids, minister, and friends attesting to his good character. Still, Jose is sent away. Soon after, Lupe tells Cant that Jose is still in Mexico trying to cross the border, and that human traffickers have been to her house to bother her and try to get her to pay them money. Around this time, Cant tells his mother about Jose and how sad he is about all the people just like Jose that he is deported. His mother tells him that he needs to figure out what to do with the violence he saw while working for Border Patrol. She tells him he should go see Jose in Mexico. When Cant goes to see Jose, Jose tells him that he will keep breaking the law to try to get into the U.S. because he is a good father. He doesn't want to raise his boys in Mexico, where there is a lot of violence, so he must find a way to be with them in the U.S. He loves the U.S., but he thinks that the border is cruel. In the last part of the story, Cant is in Big Bend National Park. He is watching a man ride a horse across the Rio Grande, which is the border between Mexico and the United States. The man asks Cant to breakfast the next morning in his village, and Cant says yes. Getting across the line is as easy as getting on the horse of a stranger. Later that day, Cant goes swimming in the river, and for a while, he forgets where he is. In a note written in December 2018 and included with the paperback version, Cant talks about what has happened on the border since he wrote the book, including the Trump administration's policy of splitting families trying to cross the border. He says that most people in the U.S. are appalled by the policy, but that bad things have been happening on the border for years, so this isn't a new thing. He wants people to reject the culture of violence on the border and the ways that it has become accepted.
About the author. Francisco Cantú was born in 1985 in the city of Santa Rosa, California. Cant's grandpa on his mother's side came to the United States from Mexico when he was a child, and Cant's mother worked to make sure he knew about his Mexican background. When Cant was young, his parents split up, and he and his mother moved around a lot because she worked as a park ranger. They finally settled in Prescott, Arizona, where Cant lived until he went to college in Washington, D.C. Cant went to college to learn about the border. When he graduated, he joined the Border Patrol to learn more about the area and its politics. Between 2008 and 2012, he worked for the agency. For the first 2 years, he was in the field in Arizona. After that, he worked in intelligence in Tucson and then in El Paso, Texas. During these years, he lost faith in the Border Patrol and the way it treated refugees as if they were not people. After he left in 2012, he got a Fulbright scholarship and went to the Netherlands to study the situation of people who are looking for refuge. Later, he went to the University of Arizona to get an MFA in nonfiction creative writing and started writing about his time with Border Patrol. This was the book that the line "Becomes a River" was based on.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.